Hello, welcome to Elevenses, the podcast of Private Jet Coach, which is a podcast about business aviation where we can share stories and hear stories from people working in the industry. And we can ask a lot of questions. And today we have with us Vanessa. Welcome, Vanessa, to our podcast today.
Buongiorno.
Vanessa is a friend of mine. We've been knowing each other for 6 years, 6 years, and we share a lot of experience in common. And Vanessa, I have a few questions for you today. So if you are ready, we can start.
I am 100%.
Perfect. So the first question is about yourself. If you don't mind to tell us about your story, your career, how it evolved, and how did you manage to get into private aviation?
I first started in commercial aviation. That was far 2011. So it was like 14 years ago. And it's been 14 years in aviation at the moment. And it was with Emirates. And that was quite random because I lost my job in marketing. That was the crisis of 2011. And I had no idea who Emirates was. I just saw that someone was recruiting and I just, okay, why not? I like traveling. I would like to discover new places, meet new people. It's always like this when you start in aviation, isn't it?
Yes.
So I went for the interview and in literally 2 months, I moved in
Oh,
Dubai to Dubai. So that was quite quick change of plans for my life. And that was the best thing that happened to me, to be fair, because I found my new passion that was aviation. And that is aviation. So, and that's where I stayed for 9 years almost. So I did like it. I did like Dubai. I did like flying. It was an absolutely phenomenal experience. I was in economy for just a couple of years and then business class for 1 year. And then the rest of my 9 years was in first class. I never wanted to become a senior cabin crew because I thought that I like to stay in touch with the customers more than managing colleagues. And I really enjoyed the part of the cabin. So that's where I stayed. And that turned out to be really good for my future because that's what happens when you want to go in private aviation. It's much easier if you have experience in first class. So the natural step up of my career was, okay, let's start doing interview for private aviation. That's what I did when I was still in Emirates, but I saw that wasn't working really well because I didn't have many days off to be traveling. There wasn't much Zoom calls and Zoom meetings like there is now. This started more after COVID, so it was more in presence, and it's fair enough. One wants to see as well the persons they're going to be working for or working with. So I had to understand that, but I didn't have time. So I resigned and I started looking for a job. I decided to relax a little bit because after 9 years of commercial, you kind of get tired. You can still see this. My eye bags, they're still there. They're tattooed there. So yeah, I was like, I'm gonna relax, but I haven't relaxed so much because I did some interviews and then I met you, and that was a turning point because that's how I got hired from my current employer. So really happy I met you, Martina, because for sure my professional life and because I gained a very good friend. So this is how I ended up in private aviation. That was probably 5 years ago, more or less, a bit more probably. And that's when we met for the first time.
yeah. Oh, likewise. I'm very happy to met you. At that time, I was recruiting for that company, and actually, you've been one of the brightest stars I could present
Thank you.
from my hunting. So that was a good catch for both of us, I would say.
And I'm also very proud that I have been your very first
Oh yes.
student. And
That's
that's thanks to
absolutely.
you that I managed to move my first steps in private aviation because it was COVID and there was no trainings happening.
Mm.
And you were so kind. You're like, I don't want you to go in a private jet without even knowing how it's built. Like I had no idea. I had no idea what a private jet was looking like. So you just went through all the features. You explained more or less how my job would have been, and that was very appreciated. And that was my very first training.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. I remember those days when we were all in lockdown for COVID, and I felt responsible for you and also all the others that were joining the company with you. And you all called me, being like, we don't know what to do. We don't know where to go. Our first flight is approaching, but we have never seen a private jet before. So can you help us? And I felt kind of a responsible, although I was no longer working for the company because all the recruitment process has been paused due to COVID. But I felt responsible for you. So I remember that building up this training at nighttime and presenting you with the training program just the day after. That was the beginning of everything. Absolutely.
It was. But then, thanks to your help, everything went well. So, well, thank you once again.
My pleasure. My pleasure having you. Okay, so what do you think is the biggest challenge you faced moving from commercial into private aviation?
Well, I can talk from my experience because coming from Emirates is a reality that is quite big, and you never fly with the same people. It's a very, very structured. The checks just to get into the plane are very thorough. You were Emirates too, so you know how they go through your look, the length of your nails, and and you cannot really do anything more than the book. So you just need to follow the book. It's very structured, and if you don't, it's likely that you get a call, and which is just different. I'm not saying that's bad because that's a success of Emirates. So that's why Emirates is so famous around the world for its
True.
excellency. So it's just different. So when I went to private aviation, I I didn't have, apart from your training that was amazing, that really set me up for some very good flights, but not having a thorough training from the company with the company procedures and everything was a bit more difficult. But also the fact that it came from such a structured company was a bit of a challenge because I was expecting the same, but luckily, and I'm saying luckily, and there is a reason, it wasn't. After a few flights, they understood, oh, well, there's no guidelines. Why am I doing this? What am I doing that? Am I doing right? What am I doing? Like, it was, this is private aviation. Like, this is that you need to think. There's not a book to follow. It's all the flights are different. So, and of course, you will have standards, you will have some layup of the table standards, you have choreographies that you need to follow. So there is a fil rouge to follow for sure, because we are representing a company, right? But the good thing about private aviation is that you can show your personality, which is amazing.
Very true. Yeah.
And you need to be flexible. You need to be very creative. And there's not a book that will tell you how to play it, or there's not a book to tell you how to behave with that certain passenger. It's everything comes together on that day out of the way you read the cabin. So there wasn't much space of this in Emirates. In Emirates was you just go on board and you do your things as per the book, as per manual. Here, we do have a manual, we follow it, but there is space for personality, which is what makes us different. And so if you ask me what was the biggest challenge, is to come from a very structured reality and expecting business aviation to be the same. That was my biggest challenge, because getting out of that mindset is difficult,
Yeah.
especially if you've been there for a very long time. So yes, for all the rest, and I'm a quite relaxed person. So I don't get stressed much, which is one of the things that help in private aviation.
You are the most
So
relaxed VIP flight attendant I have ever met.
sure. Thank you. I take it as a compliment.
Absolutely.
So, so that helped a lot, because when you are in situations when you don't know what to do, you can be overwhelmed sometimes. But it's just a matter of experience at the end of the day, and to understand that you can do things showing your personality, at least in the company I work for. Excuse me. So there might be other companies that are more structured. I'm sure there are around there, but that's how I like working, and I'm really glad I'm part of the company. I'm part of. For this is one of the reasons.
Yeah. I like when you said that all the flight basically come all together according to the way you read the cabin. That's absolutely true, because you might have a plan in your mind, but then the mood of the cabin is not there, is not going towards that direction, and you have to completely change everything you worked for, everything you have organized to adapt to the mood of the customers. So yeah, that's very true, and probably flexibility. This is part of the high level of flexibility that is required for a VIP flight attendant.
To be fair, I don't remember a flight that I thought would have gone in a certain way in my mind that actually went on that certain way. Like, never. That just doesn't happen. So that's the mindset you have to
Yeah,
go and step into a jet.
yeah,
So
that's true.
yeah, one of the qualities that we need to have is for sure flexibility, as you said.
Yeah, definitely. And what do you think are the necessary skills to become a VIP flight attendant? You mentioned earlier about the big benefit and advantage of having a first class experience in an airline. Anything else?
Every time I fly with Emirates to go to Dubai, since I go there quite often, and people ask me, I'm like, but what do we have to do? What do we have to write in our CV? Well, Emirates is it's a big thing on the CV, so never underestimate your experience in commercial, because that is valued. So a lot of people think that we in commercial just serve food, but I had a conversation yesterday, just came with Iberia, and the girls were asking me about what do we have to write in our CV, because we're just flight attendants. And there's not such a thing. Like, you need to be, as I said, flexible. In commercial, you still need to. You need to be diplomatic, and you need to be creative, find solutions for any problems. Well, in commercial, maybe there are less than private aviation, but for sure, creativity, the fact that we need to think out of the box to come up with new ways of solve problems, so problem solving. For sure, you need to be curious. So many hours spent on Pinterest or Instagram to find new ways of plating or style the cabin, or
I do
bouquet
this.
bouquets making, and I don't know, new cheese boards, how to make, to present them in a different way. So for sure, you need to be curious, and to be pushed by yourself to research. Research is very important.
Yeah.
Another thing is that you need to be discreet. So in private aviation is very important. It's a very small environment. So we need to, by reading the cabin, as we said before, you need to understand what's the level of being discreet is required for that flight, because there are some nationalities that really love talking. So
Yeah.
you're very welcome in the cabin. They want you in the cabin to interact, you know, Americans, for instance, are like this, and unless as a business, as a business flight. Some others, other nationalities, maybe they don't really want you in the cabin. They don't want you to listen to what they're saying. There are some owners, for instance, of private owners of private jet. They don't want flight attendant that speak their language, for instance,
Correct.
because they
Yeah.
don't want you to listen to their private conversation. So you will decide the level of discreet that you want to be on that flight. But for sure, this is one of the qualities that you need to have. Back in the days, one of the trainings I did in the past that wasn't yours, and I don't really agree on this, to be fair, is that you need to be invisible. Some trainings will teach you to be invisible. I don't think it's what our customers want, at least not all of them. I think private aviation nowadays is more interactive, is more, they can notice your presence. Of course, needs to be discreet, but not invisible. You're part of the experience.
True. Yeah, because you can set the flight, the success of the flight. It's basically all in your hands, and the way you interact, you can change the vibes of the people, so they can maybe start the flight being moody, but then with your service, with your interaction in the cabin with them, you can actually turn the mood into a better one.
Yeah, you just need to understand logically what is the level of interaction they want. They might not want any. Once I thought did a really bad flight because I was rattling the cabin because I felt that it was working, it was alone. And I thought he didn't really like me. Like he was looking at me and he just wanted me out of the way. And I thought it was bothering him. Now, even going there, asking if he wanted some water. So it just disappeared. I've been in the galley for the length of the flight. It was quite long. It was like 5 hours and a half, 6 hours. It was barely in the cabin. And then I got a phone call from my boss saying that he wanted to sign a contract because it was an excellent flight. And I thought it was one of the worst flights I've ever done in my life. So that was a very bad, from my side, cabin reading because I thought was still one of my first flights. Maybe now I would have thought differently. But yeah, it's they might not be aligned with your thoughts. So we really need to be skilled in reading the cabin. This is one of the biggest skills that you need to have, for sure.
I think so. And I think that this being a soft skill is something that you have to train, that you have to continuously test yourself with flights, but also by reading, by studying and researching to develop, for example, emotional intelligence, to develop the active listening. So to catch all these little glimpses and pieces of information that people share with you continuously, but if you don't know how to pick them, you're gonna miss the majority of them. So
yes, for sure. And you're gonna spoil the vibe. That's for sure. But sometimes it goes in a good way as well, because I also had other flights at the beginning that were very challenging, and I thought I did really bad flights, but I didn't understand how much effort I put. So at the end, they were very grateful to me, and I thought, that's weird, because I thought the flight was really bad. It probably was, but what they really look into is the effort and the care that you put on that.
yeah.
So
Are you perhaps talking about the flight where you did that social service with the cannolo, constructing the cannolo in front of them in the cabin?
no, it wasn't that one. No, that one actually was one of the very few flights that went as expected. No, I was talking about the bad catering I got because I have ordered some cold plates. It was a mixed meats and cheese of cold plates because I had 13 passengers in a big jet, and for like 1 hour and a half. And what turned out was mixed grill of hot meats. So you heat up all these things for 13 people, big pieces, chunks of meat, and serve them in 1 hour and a half. So that's quite challenging, especially if you don't have a proper oven. So the cannoli went really well. That was a social service I did. And yeah, it was really appreciated. They like, as I said, those were Americans, and they really like interacting and having social service and interaction at the table.
And I find that the American customers in particular, they are very amused and taken away if you start with some storytelling and telling them something about the cannoli, for example, the history of this dessert that is coming from Sicily, and the nuns created it, and it was initially for carnival and all these things. They are very, like, they just listen to you
Yeah,
completely.
blown away by
Yeah.
the stories. And the good thing is that culturally we are quite different, Americans and Europeans.
Mhm.
So there's plenty to talk about. Sorry.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
it's like there's the repertory is it's huge. So you never run out of topics really.
Yeah.
It's they do enjoy. To be fair, in Europe they do enjoy that too, and it's I think it's a good touch.
Hmm.
I think it is.
Definitely. And what about destination? Where is the most interesting destination you've been on a private jet?
This is a very difficult question because I don't remember a destination that I step onto and I didn't think that was interesting. So in every destination I go, I always tend to find something interesting because there is always something interesting, which can be nature-wise, can be history, can be people, can be the food, can be so many things. So and some one bad thing about flying for so many years is that you kind of lose this. You kind of okay, I've been to this destination. So you know when you see the same thing for many times, you kind of lose sight of what is good on that destination. Um, but I've recently been to a very new destination to me, which is quite unusual because in private aviation, we tend to fly normally always in the same places. So I've been to Africa, I've been to Rwanda, and I've stayed there for a few days. And I was very impressed by the population. I was very impressed by the history. They have a quite sad history in Rwanda. And that is quite recent, actually, because it goes back to 30 years ago. And so I've learned a lot about the country. I found it very interesting in a bad way, but interesting. In a good way, the way these people reacted to their bad history. So it was interesting to get to talk to them, to learn about their history itself, and to learn how they were reborn from the ashes. And it was good. And then it was interesting to do the safari,
Oh,
be in touch with nature, with animals. It was a great experience. There are some opportunities of landing to different places and to have the time to enjoy them, but sometimes it can be a bit hectic. You can have several flights a day and not much time to
enjoy. Mm.
to enjoy where you go.
Yeah, that's true. The funny part of business aviation is that you have like the usual business destination, which could be London, Geneva, Paris, or even in the US, New York, Boston, Washington, and things like that. But then when they decide that they want to do something different, they do something very different.
Yeah, let's go and see the orangutangos this
Yeah,
for a week. Okay, thank you. That's what I told them. Like, thank you for taking me because I have never been there.
yeah, exactly. So
And the
yeah,
werewolves.
the good thing is that they can really run wild with the fantasy and pick whatever
Mhm.
destination they want to go, and they normally are quite,
Yeah,
yeah, quite
and
wild.
they can land everywhere with this size of jets. So this is another thing that's different from commercial aviation. So you
Mm.
really end up in places. When I end up in the US, I really land in places I've never heard about. And that was such a
Me,
geography. Every time I go there, it's like I'm studying geography.
yeah,
Like, and I asked the pilots, hey, what's the capital of this state? And I write them down. And that's another interesting part of the job because I would have never known these places
yeah,
unless I would fly into the US.
yeah, absolutely,
Sure.
yeah.
I
Me,
never knew about Savannah, Georgia, and that was one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen in the US. So
yeah. You know, when
that's
I went
interesting.
to Emirates, I had this let's say technique for me to learn about a new destination. So the first time I was landing in there, in, for example, Sydney, I was doing the hop on, hop off red bus
Yes.
tour, the long one, and just take the map of the city. And while on the bus, just signing on the map the places that I wanted to go again and go, dive deeper into that. So for the next layover, I was going, straight
To this
forward
place,
to the
yes.
place. So in order to visit the city, I needed like 3 or 4 layovers.
Yeah, of course.
Nevertheless, that was quite interesting. And I ended up collecting like a huge amount of city
Look at
maps of all over the world, and I'm still doing nowadays.
Yeah, but not all hotels have them anymore because now you do everything online, and it's so sad because I'm such a paper person. Like I'm so old style despite the advance of technology, which I hate.
Our
So
generation.
I love to do that, and I still love that. But
Yeah, but so I'm picking up on city maps, maybe a little bit less frequent than
Mhm.
before, but I have like very cool city maps that are
You've
part
got
of
a good repertory
yeah.
of city maps. And
Yeah.
I
So there's
went to I went to Buenos Aires not long ago, and I was with this map, and one of the pilots told me, "You're going around with a map? Like you really look into names of streets to turn right or left?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do, I do. Yeah, what's wrong with that?" But
yeah, I remember once in South Korea, I took the metro, the most scary thing of my life, taking a metro in a city where you cannot even understand what is written on the indication and the signs
gosh.
or anything. So I was literally doing, oh, okay, one dot, 3 lines down, 3 lines down. Okay, that should be the one. So that was,
No.
it's all part of the adventure. So it's very.
Yes, it is. It is.
I have one last question for you.
Sure.
A very, I would say, philosophical type of question. If you were given the chance to go back to commercial airline now that you have experienced private aviation for quite some time, would you go back to fly commercial? And
No,
why?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Even though what I like of private of commercial aviation is having a schedule.
Mm,
Like you can actually plan things, which is good, and you tend to come back home every maximum 2 3 days because you can have a layover of 24 hours. You can have 2 days layovers, but then you always come back home. In private aviation, you can have rotations of 15, 10, 7 days. So you literally are away for that amount of time, which is quite challenging. That is coming back to the very first question you asked. This is one of the biggest challenges because it's like you have two lives. You go two different speeds, and then you have someone at home, you have partner, family, and everything that might not understand because they might not be in aviation, or maybe you have 3 kids and even one. I mean, not necessarily need to be 3, but it's difficult. It's so that's probably the part that I miss the most from
mm,
commercial, and that's one of the biggest challenges, and the schedule, of course. But that I got used to that.
mm.
So I don't think I would go back to that. No, because now maybe if I was younger, if I would have started in a younger age, maybe I could have, because I see people starting in private aviation. Maybe if I would have done that way, like doing private aviation, then I could have gone in a commercial.
Yeah, to
I would be
experience.
younger,
Okay.
have, almost more structured life that could work better with private life as well.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Yeah, in fact, when you are assigned with a duty period, the duty period can be very long, and you not necessarily know where you are going. You just know that you will be away from to, and whatever happens in between is just to discover day by day.
There's even people that do 1 month on. I
Oh,
have no idea how they cope with that. Like it happens a lot in Saudi. I've seen Saudi, they do 1 or 2 months on and 2 months off. I'm like, okay, you got 2 months off, but then what about the 2 months on? So it's
I think you could do that eventually. Well, if money is your objective, if money is your
Yes.
goal, but I would say you need to know that there is like an expiration date. I remember once flying with a pilot, and his wife was engaged on a private operation in Saudi, and she was away for 1 month on, 1 month off, and I asked him, "Oh wow, that must be very difficult for both of you." And he say, "Yes, it is. It's actually nearly unbearable, but we know that this is going to end on this day, so it's you have kind of the light at the end of the tunnel." So,
And because he's a pilot, my partner is a pilot as well, so it's easier to
yes.
understand.
Yeah, that's true. So the cliche of the flight attendant and the pilot together is actually quite beneficial, because at least you have somebody who can understand
Yes,
when you say that you are tired, when you say that that you miss home, that you are homesick, or all these things.
yes.
That's very true. Well, nevertheless, thank you very much. It was a pleasure having a conversation with you and discover about your experience in private aviation. Thank you for participating to this podcast, the Elevenses, powered by Private Jet Coach. And I look forward to interview many other people and answer to all questions you outside there might have about this industry. Well, as I say always, that's all for today. So ciao for now, and baci baci.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, Vanessa.
Ciao.